Hey guys, it's Aiden from Gamers Class. In today's video, I'm going to be continuing a climbing guide series for carry. So in the first video I made, I did a video on climbing out of Herald into the Crusader bracket. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the next bracket, which is climbing from Crusader into Guardian. So the way I'm going to approach this video is I'm going to be looking at a replay of a Crusader player, and I'm going to just mention a bunch of tips and a bunch of questions basically that you need to be thinking about and asking yourself during your games, making sure you're not making these mistakes and just making sure you're doing as much right as possible. So before we get into the video, just another thing that I want to mention is that when your rank is this low, a lot of the time it's going to mean that you probably haven't played that many games. So a lot of the time what you're going to need to do as well in order to just climb out of this rank is just play more games, learn more about the game, learn all the heroes, learn all their spells, and just getting more knowledge obviously is just going to it's just gonna make you a lot better, right? It's gonna mean you're gonna know a lot more, which means you're gonna know a lot more about what you need to think about in order to win.
If you like this kind of content, go to gamersguys.com. For just $10 a month, get your replays analyzed, watch masterclasses with pro players, join weekly coaching sessions, win prizes, and more with our Supreme Dota 2 membership.
One of the first things I want to mention that you should be asking yourself every game, and something you should be doing in every game before the game starts, even in the picking phase as a carry player, it's very important that even when you're picking, right, when you pick as a carry player, you're generally always going to look to pick at least the second phase. Picking last pick is ideal. Like, I think picking last pick in all pick rank games is very strong, and a lot of the time you can just win, like make the game a lot easier for yourself by doing that, and in a way just secure the game for your team, because last pick carry in ranked is very powerful, because you can just get like a hero that does well against all the heroes, and there's not that much they can do about it if you play well enough. So with that being said, something that's very important to do is you always need to look at the enemy's heroes, and then you need to the first thing you need to figure out is who you're going to be laning against. So if you're playing safe lane, you're always going to be laning against their off laner and their position 4 hero, right? So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to pick a hero that you've had experience with playing against the heroes they have that you think does really well. If you're not sure which hero that is, or you just haven't played enough, what you can do is you can look on like Dota buff, and then you can go to the hero that you're like the offlane hero that they picked, and you can see what heroes that hero struggles against, right? And then you just try play that hero and you try learn it. If you don't know the heroes, if you do know a hero that does really well in that lane and is decent in the game as well, that's kind of what you want to go for. So that's something that's very important, even in the picking phase, but also after the picking phase. Once the game starts, once you do see the lane you're playing against, you're also going to want to try to buy items that are going to help you in that lane, or just the best possible fit for that lane, right, to help you do well in the lane. So for example, let's say you're playing PL and you're laning against Batrider and Rubik or something like this, right? Or Batrider and Tiny. Batrider, it's a hero that's constantly spamming sticky napalm in the lane, right? In order to lane and to try dominate you. And something that's really good against that is buying a magic stick. So against heroes like Bristleback and Batrider, a lot of the time it's even worth it to start with a magic stick, just because of the insane amount of value and regen you're going to get from that against a hero like that. You just get so much sustain, and it just makes the lane a lot easier. So a lot of the time there's going to be items like these that you're going to need to buy against the heroes you're laning against, and it's very important to be aware of this. And even if you don't know what items you need to buy yet, you just need to start thinking about that. And as long as you're asking yourself that question every game, before the game start. Who am I laning against? Okay, I'm laning against these guys. What items do I need versus these guys? These are the questions you need to ask yourself every game. And sure, maybe you don't have the knowledge right now of what are the items you need, but as you play more, you're going to learn what you need. You're going to see other players do what they buy, and then you can start doing it, and you're going to learn it very soon. So that's something very important that you need to do. The next point also that I want to talk about is also like just item decisioning in general. Like item decisioning is something that spans throughout the whole game. At every point of the game, you're going to be making an item decision. And the one thing I would say is, if you are in this bracket, if you're in the Crusader bracket, and you're just trying to climb, I would say don't deviate too much from the normal builds. Like personally, that's what my advice would be. In Dota, in the Dota client, you should look for one of these guides. Personally, the one I use is Immortal Faith, just because he suggests a lot of items that you want on the hero. But as you like learn heroes better and you play heroes more, you're also going to be able to add your own input to that, right? If you're playing a hero that you don't know that well, rather just stick to guides. Don't deviate too much. But at the same time, don't just buy items blindly. Still think about why you're buying that item. Let's say you're buying a Manta, and you always want to have a reason for that, right? So generally, like a lot of the time when you're playing carry, the two things that you generally buy are either Manta or SNY. When you're buying SNY, you're buying it because you want to be tankier, and they don't have something like a silence or a annoying Venomancer, Venomous Gale that you want to disjoint with Manta. So you're just going to go ahead and get the SNY because you'd rather be tankier, right? But let's say you're playing against a Treant Protector and a Silencer. You really need like some way to get out of the silence. You need a way to get out of the root. Then you're going to be going for like Manta, right? So this is like a very simple example of like item decisioning, but this is like the things you kind of want to be thinking about. You want to have reasons for buying certain items, but at the same time, don't pick Peel and then go first item Radiance with no boots. Like don't do like crazy builds like this, because you're just gonna lose games if you do that, because it's just not that good. Like stick to the builds that pro players are doing for the most part, or good players. Don't deviate too much. You can a little bit, but try always have a reason for when you are buying a different item. And as long as you're doing that, you're going to improve and you're going to learn. Okay, so as we get in the lane here, I want to just show an example here of something that is very neglected in lower ranks that a lot of people don't understand that you need to start doing in your games. And here we'll see we're laning. It's a normal situation here where the melee creeps have gone onto the enemy's range creep, and their melee creeps on your range creep, right? And an important thing to notice here is that this Peel, this guy playing carry, is not in position to get the last hit on this range creep, right? So there's two things that I want to mention here. So a lot of the time in lanes, you're gonna be playing in a lane where if you do run at a range creep, the enemy are going to be able to cast spells on you, and they're going to be able to get a lot of damage on you. In some lanes, people also won't be able to pressure you that much because their heroes just can't do that much. So what you need to do is you need to always think, can they pressure me really hard if I go for that range creep? If I'm Peel and I'm positioned here and I just run at the range creep and go for the last hit, can they do a lot of damage? Can they harass me? If the answer is no, then you just do that. If the answer is yes, then what you want to do is you want to use, like let's say you're Peel, you have Spirit Lance. You want to use this spell always to secure range creeps, because you don't want to put yourself in this position to do the last hit, so you're rather just going to use the nuke to secure the range creep, right? And this is something that I see very often in low rank games. Players never use their spells to secure range creeps. Instead, they just randomly use Spirit Lances on the enemy heroes, and it's just not worth it. What you need to realize is the experience from this range creep is a lot more than the melee creeps. And whoever gets level 2 first in the lane is a big power spike, and it's something like you don't need to focus on that too much. You just need to be aware of it. But the important thing is you just need to start using your spells to secure range creeps. Let's say you're playing a carry that doesn't have a spell that can secure range creeps, right? Let's say you're playing Slark, you don't have a long range nuke that can secure range creeps. What do you do in that case? In that case, what you want to do is you want to ask your support. So if these two things are true in your game, right? You don't have a long range nuke to secure range creeps, and if you run at the range creeps to try last hit it, the enemy can pressure you a lot. What you want to do in that case is you want to ask your support to then try secure the range creep, because most of the time your support is always going to have a better way than you to try to, like, he's always going to have like a long range spell, and he's going to be a range hero most of the time. So he's always going to have a much easier time in securing this. So in situations like that, you want to then tell your support beforehand, look, in the earlier stages of the lane, when I'm so early level, they can pressure me if I try to go for range creeps. I don't have a reliable way to secure these range creeps. You should do it instead, so that I'm not taking damage for just getting that one last hit. That way you're going to get the gold and we're both going to get the XP. So this is something that's very important that you just want to keep in mind. It's something very overlooked, even in like as you get higher up in the ranks. So okay guys, so continuing the video from here, we see that during the lane here there was an engagement where the enemy offlaners went on this PL support, the support died, and now he's alone in the lane. So one of the things that I just want you to be aware of in situations like this, whenever you're like, this is a guide primarily focused on carries, so I'm always going to be talking from the carry's perspective. So whenever your support dies, it's very, 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 very important that the first thing you're always doing is you're spending your gold and you're dropping your items in the base, okay? So let's say, like in this situation, the lion dies, and so now he's gonna respawn and he's gonna TP back, right? As a carry player, when this happens, when your support does die, or even when you die, you always need to ask either your support to drop items for you to bring for him, or he's gonna just drop it. Or if your support dies, you always need to drop the items you buy. So here, this PL buys a stick, which, just for the record, it's a very late stick in this lane. This is something that I mentioned earlier. Thinking about the lane beforehand, being aware as soon as you get into the lane what you need. We see here he bought a Wraith Band before he bought stick. He's laning against Veno PA. These things are very costly, and if he had had this stick earlier, this lane would be a lot easier for him. Like, he would have a 10 stick charge right now, and that's like 70% of his HP healed, or 60%, right? So, like, just to reiterate, this thing, it's very, very important that you pay attention to this, and you beforehand, you already know what you need in the lane so that you can get it as soon as possible. Because when things come late like this in Dota, when timings are missed, it punishes you really hard, and that's like something that you need to try learn as early as possible. So the point that I'm trying to cover here as well, the main point, that's just a side thing there, is when your support dies, always buy your items, spend your gold, drop your items in the base, then ping the items, tell your support, pick up the items before you TP, and bring my items, please. And basically what this does is pretty obvious, right? It just saves your courier from having to run from here to here, and it saves you a minute of time. It gets this item to you a lot faster, and it's something that almost nobody does in low rank games. And if you start doing it and you start asking your supports to do it, you're gonna have a big advantage in the lane. And because no one else is doing it, it's just like a really good way for you to just get out of the bracket as soon as possible, right? So things like these small things, don't overlook them. They're very, very important. Okay guys, so skipping a little bit forward in the lane here, another point I want to talk about is in the safe lane as the carry player, a lot of the times there's going to be situations where your lane is deep in the lane, or the lane is pushing in. And most of the time there's going to be two situations that occur. So always what's going to happen is your support is going to want to pull in order to get the lane back for you under your tower, and then you can last it, right? So while this is happening, while your support is pulling, it's very, very important to keep track of what the enemy pos 4 is doing, because the enemy pos 4 in this situation has pretty much two options, and those two options are either he's trying to stop the pull from happening and he's fighting Lion, which means he would be positioned over here, stopping the pull from happening, trading with this Lion. If the supporter is doing that, then you're going to have a 1v1 against the enemy pos 3, and then you can kind of just play the lane normally, right? But you still want to keep a close eye as to where this pos 4 is, because if you see that this pos 4 is now starting to run towards the lane where you are and your support isn't there yet, then you want to make sure that you don't create an opportunity. Whereas let's say this is a Mars instead of a PA, you don't want to allow this Mars to like pin you to a tree and then give the time for the pos 4 to connect and they can do a bunch of damage or even kill you, right? So this is one of the situations. The other situation is the pos 4 is going to do what this pos 4 is doing here, right? This Venomancer, he's staying in the lane. He's laning with the pos 3 and he's trying to stay here and pressure you, right? When this happens, it's very, very important that you don't take a lot of damage and you don't allow an opportunity where they can actually catch you and kill you, right? It's very, very important, because if that happens, it creates a very bad situation where you're gonna die. Your support is going to get the pull off, and then the creeps are going to come under your tower and you're going to miss a bunch of creeps as well as dying, which is the worst case scenario. So what I want to say about this is, when you're laning, when your support is pulling, always keep track of where the enemy pos 4 is. If he's staying in the lane, which is what most pos 4s would do at the lower ranks, because they don't really know what they're supposed to do. If they're staying in the lane with their pos 3, don't give them a situation where they're going to get a substantial amount of damage on you, or even create a situation where they can kill you. It's very, very important that this never happens and you pay attention to this when this happens. A lot of the time though, in some situations, if you're ahead in the lane and you feel like they can't pressure you that much because they don't have that much catch or they don't have that much damage, whatever the case may be, then you still want to be careful, but you can still contest creeps by running near the creeps and aggroing them back and last hitting them that way. If you don't know how aggro works, the way aggro works is you stand near a creep, you click on an enemy hero, the creeps will then aggro on you, they will follow you for around 2-3 seconds, then they're going to de-aggro, and at that point when they de-aggro, you turn around and re-aggro them, and then they will follow you for good. So this is something in some situations where you will be able to do that. In this situation particularly, you see this PL is way too low to contest creeps, this Venom has Venomous Gale, and there's a PA. There's no way he contests this. What he needs to do here, he needs to sit in XP range, make sure there's no opportunity where they can get a lot of damage on him, make sure there's no opportunity where they can catch him and actually kill him. In this case, it's pretty hard because he does have doppelgang, but still, you just want to keep that in mind. And the important thing to realize is that your support is pulling, so this lane is gonna, the next wave and a lot of these creeps here are gonna come under your tower and you're gonna get all these last hits for free. So you want to make sure you don't do anything silly like trying to fight them when your support is pulling. This is just an important thing to keep in mind, so definitely be aware of that. Okay guys, skipping further into the replay, into the video here. Another point that I want to just mention is a lot of the time, like as the lane progresses, like around like 8 minutes, 7 minutes, depends on the timing, kind of what the enemy are doing. You just want to keep in mind that a lot of the time it's going to be way better for you to start moving towards the jungle or move towards another lane, because generally what happens in games of Dota is the enemy team is naturally gonna start moving towards your lane, the safe lane, around this time in the game. So for example, in this game, this Skywrath just showed up in the lane, and also the Venom and the PA there, and there was kind of a pretty big engagement. It wasn't super bad, but this is something that's gonna happen like in a lot of your games. And what's important to realize as the carry player is that, like at this point in the game, you don't want to be sitting in a lane fighting against 2 or 3 heroes. So if situations happen where the 3 heroes in your lane, or they're putting a lot of pressure on your lane and you feel like you can't really farm it without taking a lot of damage, getting harassed too much. So for example, this Venom is like a really high level now, so he does a lot of damage. He's just annoying. So there's two things you're gonna look to do. If you feel like the lane is very high risk, let's say you're playing against like two very high kill potential heroes, like a Legion plus high damage hero. Let's say they have like a Invoker as well, right? So if you get dueled, you just die. Or let's say you're playing against Doom. If he just dooms you, you just die. In those situations, most of the time you're just gonna want to move to the jungle, and the only time you're coming back to the lane is when the lane gets pushed under your tower and it's safe to defend, because you know for a fact that there aren't like 3 or 4 heroes there, right? If the lane is like, if there's like 4 heroes coming to take the tower, most of the time what you want to do in those situations as the carry is go bottom or mid, and you want to pressure the bottom and mid tower, and you want to try trade towers. In some cases, maybe your team wants to defend the tower. In those cases, you can do that as well if you feel like you're strong enough. But the important point that I just want to mention here is that as a carry player, a lot of the time around this timing in the game, around like 7 to 9 minutes, you're gonna want to just move towards the jungle and kind of like just have a lower risk of being pressured, right? One thing you can do though, if you are ahead in the lane or you feel like the lane isn't that dangerous, like they can't pressure you that much, then what you want to do is you just want to constantly shove in the lane as fast as possible, and then just go jungle. What this is going to do, it's going to mean that the lane is always very safe for you because the creeps are always constantly under the enemy's tower. And the other thing that it does is it means that you're farming a lot faster than you normally would be, because you're farming the whole wave and you're farming the jungle creeps at the same time. So this is like a couple of scenarios that you just need to be aware of that happen very commonly in Dota games. And as a carry player, it's very important to react appropriately. So yeah. Alright guys, so in the next part of the game here, just wanna this is like a little bit further on past the laning stage. At this point in the game, there's just a few things I want to mention, and those are, firstly, as a carry player at this point of the game, like a lot of the time the situations are either going to be that you're jungling in your jungle, or the situation is going to be that you took the enemy's bottom safe lane tower with your 10-minute catapult, and in those cases you're generally going to be playing bottom lane instead of your jungle. Sometimes if you're playing like a Drow or a TB, you'll also be playing in the triangle. But the important thing that I just want to mention here is that you always want to be like looking around the map and always looking to like towers that you can defend and waves that you can defend, and a pressure that you can apply, right? So in a lot of like parts of the game, there's going to be a lot of heroes at one part of the map. Let's say they're like a lot of heroes bottom taking a fight or something, right? As a carry player, it's always super important to always like react to that by applying pressure on other parts of the map, right? So let's say you see like 2 heroes bottom, 2 heroes mid. In those situations, what you want to do, you want to run top and you want to shove in this lane as fast as possible, right? Why do you want to do this? Because they have heroes on other parts of the map. You want to force them to defend this part of the map. You want to stop them from being able to do what they want to do here, and pull them to a part of the map where they can't do as much as they want to, right? So this is a lot of the time stuff that you can do, but like I said, mostly the ideal situation for carries is that with a 10-minute catapult, you and your team, like a lot of the time a move you can make as a carry, you can TP bottom at minute like 9:30, try take the tower with the catapult, and then once you take this tower here, your team can place vision in the enemy jungle and you have a very safe area to farm. At this point of the game, in this game specifically, we see that Peel is like farming in his jungle. He has wards here, so this is good. He's farming on his vision. He's in a very safe area. One thing you do want to keep note is that when you do see heroes on the map, and you see like the top lane shoving in from like a solo Venom, you should, the only time you like defend this is if you know that if only the Venom is here, right? You never want to like forcefully defend this tower if they have a chance to kill you, if they're like 3 heroes or whatever, right? So you always want to just be aware of that. You want to pay attention to the map at all times. Only defend lanes when you know it's safe to do so. If you see like a lot of heroes on like bottom part of the map and you're top, then what you want to do, you want to start applying pressure to top as soon as possible, and you also want to keep your eye out bottom to see what's going on, to see if you can TP in and actually help. Another thing I just want to mention here as well is, while you're farming as a carry player around this part of the game, it's very important that you're always making sure that your HP pool is high enough so that you're in a position where you can TP and join fights and turn engagements. Make sure that you're always like high HP, in a position to TP in and help your team to fight if they're diving or whatever, right? The important thing is that you're just not farming on like 10% HP for like 5 minutes or something like that, because that's just like means you can never help your team if you need to, and it also makes it very hard to apply pressure. So if you need regen to get your HP up, then do it. If you're not playing a hero that has natural sustain like lifestealer or something. Okay guys, so moving into the next part of the video here, another point I want to just mention here for the low MMR players is, a lot of the time, like in your games, a lot of the time there's going to be things like, the important thing is that what I'm trying to say is like, you just never want to put yourself in like unsafe positions or sketchy positions, right? And that means like, you don't want to ever be in a position where if an enemy TP's in, you die, or there's a chance you die. You always want to be like making sure that you're in a safe part of the map. There's no way that like a guy can just TP in and kill you, and you're just like farming in a safe area, and you're always ready to apply pressure, or you're ready to TP to a tower and join a fight with your team. These are like the important things that you need to be doing while you're farming. Another thing also that I just wanted to mention here, like with the item build, is in this game particularly, this guy, he went like brown boots diffusal blade, and this is just something I want to mention, just like an efficiency thing with carries, is like the earlier you get your power treads, the faster you're going to farm pretty much. Like if you look at power treads compared to a Blade of Alacrity, which is what this player bought instead of a power treads at around the 8-minute mark. Power treads is giving you 45 movement speed, it's giving you 10 agility or strength, it's giving you 25 attack speed, right? So it's giving you like a lot more than this is giving you, right? Like the important thing that I'm just trying to mention here is that like power treads are really good like for farming. Like the earlier you get this, the faster you're gonna farm pretty much. So like a lot of the time, like the builds that I'm doing in this current patch, I even skip, like most of the time I don't go for like 2 wraith bands, because I feel that it's not worth it. I would rather just have my power treads like a minute earlier or 2 minutes earlier, rather than having that extra wraith band, because the wraith band just doesn't do that much. So yeah, like a lot of the time, the way you're going to want to build your hero is like 1 wraith band. Most games you're always going to want to magic 1, just because it makes your hero like way stronger in team fights and stuff. And then like you always want to try to get your power treads as soon as possible. If you can get your power treads around like 5 or 6 minutes, you're going to see that your farm speed is just like a lot faster. So just going into this point here, I just want to like reiterate on this and just show you an example. We see here, this guy is, so he starts by getting the bounty, then he's moving, he goes up to look if he can get another bounty, sees that the bounty's taken, cool, he can't get the bounty, right? So at this point he can't get the bounty, he farms here, that's fine, he sees here's bottom, so he knows he's safe, but now he sees a PA here, and now he starts diving this PA, and this is what I'm talking about. Like the important thing to realize is that you can never dive enemies in these sorts of situations. Like also you need to like always factor in how fast that guy is gonna die. For example, this is a PA, she has 20% evasion, so it's gonna take pretty long for this PL to kill this PA, right? So you always need to evaluate that before you go for kills. Make sure you're not diving super deep for a kill that just can't happen. And like now you see he's in a position where if a guy TPs, there's a risk he can die. In this particular situation he escapes, but this is still just a very bad habit to have, and it's very important that you're like not doing things like these in your games. Alright guys, so a little bit further on in the replay here, another point I want to mention something very important as a carry player that I just wanted to mention, because if you look at the state of the map at this part of the game, we see that the enemy has all 3 tier 1 towers up, right? And the point I want to make around this is that as a carry player, a lot of the time you're going to be wanting to run at towers with your team when you feel strong to do so. And most of the time it's also going to be when your catapult spawns. So if you didn't know, the catapult spawns with a wave every 5 minutes, and this is like the most important time for a carry. Like a lot of the time as a carry, you're always looking to make plays around these catapults. You're looking to run at towers with your team to get free towers. Like I said earlier in the video, a really great move to make with the 10-minute catapult, if you're strong enough and you can do so, is go for the enemy safe lane tower and with like your off laner and your pos 4, and you can just generally just get a free tower. The other scenario is that the enemies will react and they will TP to defend it. And you just need to realize that even if they do TP and defend it, you're still forcing enemies to a part of the map which isn't ideal for them to OP in. So the point I'm making here is using catapult timings to pressure towers, looking for these openings with your teammates. Try to also link them with your item timings, right? Whenever you have a power spike, so like this PL got a diffusal blade at like 14 minutes. And what did he do when he got his power spike? He tried to dive PA on this tier 1. A play that he could have made is he could have TP'd bottom. He could have played with his team bottom, gotten a free tower with the 15-minute catapult. And if they did come to try fight, he would have been happy to do so because he just got his diffusal blade, right? So always try play around your timings, try play around catapult timings, and look to get free towers when you can as a carry player. Alright guys, moving on into the next part here in the video. One of the points I want to mention here is something that we're going to see the PO does here is basically a fight recently happened. The PO died and now he respawns and he TPs into the top tier 1 on the safe lane. So this is something like a pretty like common mistake in like this bracket, even a little bit higher, that you need to be aware of and you need to like try stop doing wherever you can, right? The important thing is you just start being aware of it and then you'll stop doing it. So basically, what is the problem with this TP? So firstly, the problem with this TP is that you're TPing into an area where you have zero vision, right? So he's TPing top. He has no observer wards here. He doesn't see any heroes on the map. For all he knows, there could be a Skywrath, a Slark, and a PA standing right here, ready to kill him as soon as he TPs in. So what's the first problem here? It's a dangerous part of the map. Another problem is that you're openly showing the enemy that you TP'd here. So they know that you can't like TP out, or they know you're going to be here for at least like the next 10 to 20 seconds, right? Because the only way you're getting out of this area is if you're running away. And that's going to take time. So like a lot of the time at this point in the game, the area you're going to be wanting to play as the carry is you're going to be wanting to play around your vision first of all. So in this game you have vision in your triangle, so this would be the safe area to go. And also another area which is good to play is the bottom area. Why is the bottom area good to play? Because there's no tier 1 here from the enemy, so it's hard for them to be here, and it's also kind of hard for them to like gank here if you're farming here compared to here, because there's a huge tree line here where they can be hiding, right? Here it's a lot harder, and also you have a tier 1 right here and a lot of heroes that are close that can defend, that can TP. Another thing also is that you want your supports to place vision in their jungle. So as a carry player, the way you can help make this easy is by pushing this lane in deep. Okay, and you want them to place like some vision in the jungle so that you can play this area very safely. Another problem with this TP as well is you're wasting your TP for pretty much no reason. Like there isn't a huge wave here that you're farming. It's a bad area to be in. And the other problem as well is, let's say a fight breaks out mid or something, or an engagement that you want to be at, you also wasted your TP, and you simply could have just like ran from, as you spawned, you could have just ran to the triangle and you wouldn't have missed that much gold, because At this point, you're going to have to run away as soon as you farm this wave because it's a very dangerous area anyways, right? So this is just something that you need to keep in mind as a carry player, how you use your TPs, where you TP, and yeah, so that's just really important to keep in mind. Alright guys, so a little bit further on into the replay here, I just want to mention another little tip here that like something that would be very helpful is this is throughout the whole game as well. It's not just something that applies to this part of the game. But when you're farming as a carry player and you're in like a safe area farming on your vision, you always want to be looking around the map, gathering as much info as possible. Like looking around the map when the Skywrath shows, look at his item, see what his item is. When this Arc Warden shows bottom, you look bottom, you see what items he has. And this is just something that you need to do in every game. The reason for this is as a carry player, a lot of the time you're going to want to buy items counteracting what the enemy are buying, right? And the only way you can do that is if you know what the enemy are buying. So you always need to keep tabs on what they're buying, be one step ahead. Let's say you see there's a TB, he's buying a butterfly, then you're probably going to want to buy an MKB, right? So that's probably the next item you're going to buy in that case. So this is an example of that. But it's not only that, it's also just if you're constantly looking around while you're farming and knowing where the enemies are, you're going to be more aware of when they aren't showing. You're going to know when the map is dangerous. You're going to know like where the enemies are, so you're gonna be aware of that faster, which means you can pressure the side of the map where you are, and in turn that's just like higher efficiency, which is just way better, and it's just got a ton of like huge benefits, right? So this is something you need to like make sure you're focusing on. I know this is something that a lot of low MMR players do not do at all, and it's really, really important. Alright guys, so later on into the game here, the next point I want to talk about is team fights. So basically the things I just want to mention about team fights is that basically throughout the whole game you need to be looking at the enemy's heroes, and you need to be like, even before fights happen, thinking about what are the targets that need to die first, what are the targets that you need to initiate on, what are the very like dangerous heroes that need to be kept in check, for example, right? So as the carry, most of the time your job is going to be to kill supports. So you're going to be wanting to buy items that help you do that. You're also going to be wanting to make sure that you're looking at their items. So let's say you're playing against an Oracle. Oracle's a very good example of a hero that you need to kill first in fights, because if you don't, he just saves the guy that you're going on. And let's say this Oracle has a Glimmer Cape, right? So you need to make sure that you're prepared for that. You have a dust ready. If you don't have slots for a dust, you need to make sure you're telling your supports that they need to have a dust so that you can actually kill the Oracle. So this is like the most important thing when it comes to team fight. It's basically just about being prepared. Other things that are also really important are making sure you're not fighting in bad positions. So some good examples of these, just basic examples, is like you don't want to be running up enemy high grounds. The best place to always fight from is from your high ground and they're running up into you. If you're doing this, it's going to be really good for you. Another thing about taking team fights is always try take fights on your vision. Never try run into dark parts of the map where you think the enemy are, but you don't have vision of them, so they're gonna have that advantage if you just run up the hill or run into the darkness, right? So try play around your vision, play in good areas on your high ground, don't run up high grounds from the low ground, and play around objectives that are important. These are the best like times to take fights, either when you're pushing, or it's when you're defending, or it's around the Roshan area. Okay guys, so again, later in the game here, and another point I want to make here is basically this is more about the later stages of the game, some things you need to keep in mind, some things that are very important. And the first thing I want to cover is buyback. So as a carry player in the late game, it's very important that you're always saving your gold to make sure you have buyback. The easiest way to do this is by just looking at the UI here at the bottom right. You see here that it's telling you how much surplus gold you have after buyback. So that means, so right now he has 7.5k gold. It means he can spend 4k gold and he still has buyback ready, right? So this is something you always need to be keeping track of. In the later stages of the game, buybacks are like one of the most important things when it comes to winning those games. Most of the time it's like a rush fight. Whoever has the best buybacks and takes the fights the best just ends up winning, or it's a high ground thing where you need buybacks. And buyback is just super important in tons of situations in the late game. So you need to always make sure that you're like saving buyback where you can. In some situations, if you're very far behind in the game and you're like not farmed enough, then in those situations you won't save buyback, but it's pretty situational. So you just want to keep that in mind. If you're far ahead and you're like highest net within the game, then you're pretty much always looking to save buyback. Another thing also when it comes to the late game is it's very important where you farm on the map. Most of the time, like the area where you want to farm at this point in the game is always going to be around the Roshan area. And this is also going to link to my next point here, which is going to end up the video. But other than that, like the most important things to do in the late game, making sure that lanes are constantly shoved. Let's say you're playing PL or you're playing Terrorblade, using your illusions constantly to keep the lanes shoved in. It's just like the best things you can do in the late game. Like the lanes are super important because it gives you all the vision. The other thing also, playing around the right objectives, right? So a lot of the time what's going to happen in the later stages of the game, you're just going to like play in one area and you're going to play under a ward, and then you're going to be waiting for like Roshan, and then once you get Roshan you're going to go high ground or something like this, right? So these are like just some really important things to keep in mind in the late game. And the last point I want to make here as well about the late game that is extremely important is you need to have a very high priority on the third Roshan. If you didn't know, the third Roshan drops not only Aegis and Cheese, but it also drops a refresher shard or a free Aghanims for any of your heroes. So with that being said, like I think it's pretty obvious, the third Roshan is super important to always contest. If you're getting the third Roshan, you're going to be winning that game like I'd say 70% of the time, 80% of the time. It's like a huge boost in strength to your team. It makes you so much stronger. You get not only Aegis and Cheese, you also get a refresher and an Ags. So it's very important that you're always playing around that third Roshan as much as possible when it comes to late game scenarios. If you're ever dropping the third Roshan for free, or you're not contesting it, the game is going to be a lot harder to win, and it's a huge advantage for whichever team gets it. So that's going to be the video, guys. Going to be the end of the video here. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it, and good luck climbing out of the Guardian bracket.